Now, before we can go to the References tab where we can find the table of contents, we first have to talk about this section of the Home tab. Okay? We haven't talked about this section yet. Now, for example, who can tell me what is a table of contents? What do we mean when we speak of a table of contents? If anybody has any idea of what it means or its purpose is.
So could you repeat the name?
Table of contents.
Content.
Content, yeah. Table of content.
Like the table that has everything we need? Content?
No. So in Arabic, it's called al-fahras. It's sort of an index for you to find the pages or the resources that are in the document more easily. Like, for example, say you have a book, and that book is about 2,000 page long. Okay? Now, wouldn't it be easier if you had an index that tells you that such and such section is in page number so and so? The other section is in page so and so. That would make searching for the appropriate section that you want to read way easier, doesn't it? I'm not sure if you're following along with the example I gave. Let's say, for example, you need a specific chapter or a specific section of a certain book. Which way is easier? If you
Yeah, you
figure it
can go
out,
to the content.
yeah, you go to the table of contents,
Yeah.
and then you will find the appropriate section you want to read and the page that this section is where this section is located. Okay, so you wouldn't
Yeah.
waste time searching for the appropriate section. It would take
Yeah.
time otherwise, that can be used otherwise in reading the section itself. Okay, so you have to minimize the time needed to research or to search for the appropriate resources you need. Now, the way you go about that is to generate a table of contents for your document. For example, uh, it is mandatory for you to use a table of contents in your memoirs. Okay, you have to use a table of contents. For example, when the teachers ask you to correct certain mistakes, you can just click on the resource on the table of content, and then it will take you there automatically. Okay. For example, I don't know if I have a file to demonstrate that for you. For example, I will use my master's memoir to demonstrate. Okay. Now, notice here we have the chapters laid out because the table of contents itself. Now, if I click on the resource itself, it takes me exactly to where the resource is located. Okay, notice I didn't have to search for this diagram, I just searched the table of contents, and then directly I clicked on that table of on that resource, on the resource itself, and it took me right to the appropriate page. Okay, just to give you an example. Okay, so Word has a mechanism of generating a table of contents, but first, before we can generate a table of contents, we have to talk about the structure, the appropriate structure of a document. The document needs to have a title. Okay, needs to have a title, and the document is subdivided into several chapters. Are we in agreement?
Yes, totally.
Yeah. So, and the chapters themselves are subdivided into sections, and then the sections are subdivided into subsections. Okay? So, you need to understand the appropriate structure of a document before we can proceed. That our document, which is an article, by the way, is divided into several chapters. Each chapter is divided into sections, and each section is divided into subsections. Okay, these are levels. Okay, these levels are hierarchical. Hierarchical meaning that we have chapters, and then the chapter itself is divided into sections, and then each section is divided into subsections, and so on. Okay, normally we wouldn't go any deeper than 3 levels. Okay, uh, even 2 levels is generally accepted. Okay, so moving on now, Word has in the home tab, in this section on the right, we have what are called heading styles. Notice here we have heading 1, heading 2, title, subtitle. Okay, each style is supposed to be reserved for a specific hierarchical position. Like we have to use a heading style for chapters, we have to use a heading style for sections, we have to use a different heading style for subsections. Okay, so here we have a title style. Now, title, we have a title. Now, if we use the heading 1 style, the heading 1, whenever you use the heading 1 style, it is for writing the title of the chapter. Chapters are written using the heading 1 style. Okay, and before I move on, these heading styles can be modified to suit your preferences or to suit your document's presentation. Okay, we can modify it, rename it, change the color, change the font. For example, if I don't want to use this default font, we can use a different font. For example, we can increase, decrease the font size. We can change the style. For example, we can make it bold, italic, underlined, and different things. Okay, for the purposes of our lesson, we will just leave everything as is and go try to structure our document. Okay, so pay attention. I've written the title. Now, after the title comes the first chapter. What do you think I should use to write the first chapter, to write the title of the first chapter? I've just now been talking about
Another headline?
no, a different headline than the title, but you should always use the heading 1 style, okay, for
Yeah, yeah.
chapters. The heading 1 style to write chapters, or the title of the chapters at least. The heading 2 style to write the title of the sections, and the heading 3 style to write the title of the subsections. Okay? Are we on the same page?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, now I want to write the title of the first chapter. Okay? So, I should select the first heading style and then write the title of the chapter. For example, let's choose a random topic. For example, let's choose a random topic. Let's go and change the title to, for example, and now we have chapters. Let's go with chapter is Great Britain. For example, we're going to talk about the belligerents or the participants of this war. For example, Great Britain. And then let's give a description. Let's go to the insert tab and insert an online picture. Let's go with a picture. Let's click on insert. Yes, go ahead if you have a question about the exam. I think it would be a written exam because it is impractical for us to use computers because of the sheer number of you. Okay, so I don't know how many are there in this section alone. Okay, we have PS and PM students. You will have the same exam, so I don't think there are enough computers for you to use. So I think regrettably, we have to use you have to do a written exam. Okay. Okay. So the videos, the lessons are found in on YouTube. Okay, and I uploaded each video we did to Moodle. Okay, so you can find them in Moodle, or you can find them. Yes, I will try to provide you with written lessons if I have the time, but uh, not right now. I think I would be able to do provide you with a summary of what we've seen. Uh, I think this vacation, the holidays, maybe. I will try to give you the resources as soon as possible. Okay. So right now we haven't finished really finished the program. Yes, no problem. I will try my best to provide you with written lessons. So now going back to what we were talking about. Now, this is just to show you the structure of the document. Now, for example, Great Britain. Let's speak on the Army of Great Britain. Now, the Army of Great Britain, notice that Great Britain is a chapter in this document. Now, the Army of Great Britain is a section of the chapter of Great Britain. For example, we should use the second heading style, heading 2 style. Okay? Now, this section is to talk about the Army of Great Britain. For example, the Army in the conflict, for example. And for good measure, let's insert an online picture. Let's go with this image. Let's click on insert. And now we have the image. Let's make it smaller so that it fits on this page. Now, we've talked about the army. Now, let's do another chapter, another section, which should be written in heading style, the second heading style. Now, and like the other section, let's insert this image. Now, let's go and do another chapter. France. Let's do another chapter, and now let's we can write an introduction on the chapter. Okay, and let's now talk about the Army and the Navy. Okay, just imagine there is a bunch of gibberish written here. Just I want to make sure that the document is well structured. Okay, so the Army and the Navy, which at the time was pretty much non-existent. Let's do a final chapter. Let's do a final chapter. Let's talk a bit about Spain's colonies. Okay, so here we pretty much have a well-structured document. Just imagine that everything is written like this. Okay, so now what you can do is you can minimize the chapter of Great Britain like so. Okay, same thing with France. Okay, same thing with France. The chapter can be minimized like so. Now, the benefit of this feature is, for example, let's say that I want to modify something in this chapter, France. Okay, so what I should do is I should minimize this chapter because I don't want to modify anything in this chapter so that the document becomes more compact. Okay, now I go to the second chapter and I can modify the document as I see fit. Okay, it helps you in structuring the document. For example, just imagine if you had a document, a pretty large document, for example 300 pages and everything, so it would be tedious to try and edit the document and search for everything to edit. Okay, you can just on the fly, for example, I don't need this chapter, I'm not gonna touch this chapter, so I should minimize it to so that the document doesn't become cluttered, and then I go to where I need to edit the document, I make my changes, and then I save the document, and voila. Okay, now notice here I can minimize the chapter, but for example I can also minimize the section. For example, let's say I want to modify the Navy section. Now I don't need this Army section, I'm not gonna touch it, so I minimize it, and now we have the Navy. I do my changes, I make my changes, and then I go back, I open the Army chapter again, I save the document, and I go back. Okay, now Now I go back to the start of the document. Now the table of contents should be located just under the title. Okay, so what you should do is you go to the first page, you leave some space, and now as we've structured our document accordingly, before we move on, notice first we had two heading styles, but once I used the second heading style, a third one appeared. Now the third one is for subsections. Let's try to add some subsections to this chapter. For example, let's add some subsections to this chapter. Let's go and use the heading 3 style to name a subsection. For example, we have the red coats, we have the, for example, Coast Guard. We have the Coast Guard. Let's go back now and let's find out how to insert a table of contents in our document. Now, the table of contents is located in the Reference tab. Okay, References tab. We have the References tab right here. Now, we have the first option we have is a table of contents. It is a drop down menu. Now, drop down menu, we have a automatic table one. Let's try it. Notice here what it gave us. We have Great Britain, and just under it we have the chapter called Army, and then right under it we have the chapter called Great Britain, section called Army. Now under that section there is a subsection called the Coast Guard. Okay, and each one of them, for example, we have the Navy, which is a section of Great Britain chapter. Now France has the Army and Navy, Spain has Spanish America, and Spain's role. Okay, now notice here it just inserted a default, an automatic table of contents. Okay, so you need to structure your document accordingly. Anything written in heading 1 style is considered to be a chapter. Anything written using a heading 2 style is considered to be a section. Anything written using the heading 3 style is considered to be a subsection. Okay? Is it clear?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we don't just need to use this automatic table. Now the uses of this table of contents, let's say for example we have Great Britain at page number 2, we have Army at page number 3, we have Coast Guard at page number 4. Okay, let's modify this. Let's bring the Coast Guard, for example. Now Coast Guard is located in page number 5, but the table of contents says page number 4. Now we can select this option called update table, or we can select this option right here when we select the table of contents itself. Both of them have the same functionalities. For example, when I click on update table, we have two options: update page numbers only or update the entire table. Now the difference between these two options is, for example, the only modification that I did to this document, I didn't edit any chapter names, any section names, any subsection names, meaning that I don't need to update the entire table. However, I made a change that resulted in the Coast Guard subsection to be in page 5 instead of 4. So I need to update the page numbers only. Now notice the changes. We have Coast Guard at page 4. Now if I update the page numbers only, we have Coast Guard at page 5, and subsequently the other elements right under them. Don't know why this one shows. Oh, let's try to update the entire table. Here, it is fixed. Now, notice here we have Spain in page 7, Spanish America in page 7, Spain's role in page 7. But if, for example, I made radical changes, for example, I edited the chapter names or the section name or the subsection name, for example, if I edited the Coast Guard name, for example, let's go with British Marines. Now the subsection name has changed. Okay, the name itself has changed. Now what I need to do is now for me to select this table of contents, or select update table here, and I need to update the entire table. Okay, I need to update the entire table. For example, if I select update page numbers only, it only searches for changes in page numbers. But now I made the change to the title of the subsection itself. Now I need to choose update the entire table. Now notice how the British Marines replaced Coast Guard. Okay, so I think this way is better than writing the table of contents manually. Okay, you just use the appropriate heading styles for your chapters, the sections, and the subsections, and then you generate the table of contents. But don't forget to position the cursor under the title so that the table of contents is inserted right under the title. Okay, is everything clear? Okay,
Yeah, it is clear.
so do not forget, you need to concentrate and memorize what I just told you. The heading styles. Now to insert, for example, a table of contents, first you to insert a table of contents, for example, we go to the references tab and then we choose appropriate table of contents. But we need to make sure first that our document is a well structured document. A well structured document meaning that the titles of the chapters, the sections, and the subsections are written using the appropriate heading styles there are, for example, heading 1 for chapters, heading 2 for sections, heading 3 for subsections. Okay, so let's remove the table of contents now, and let's see what other options we have. Okay, so we have automatic table 1, we have automatic table 2, which is just a different style for the table of contents, but essentially this, which is essentially the same thing. Let's remove it. Now, the other interesting option, we have a manual table of contents, which is not really very interesting, but the more interesting option of these is a custom table of contents. Now, a custom table of contents, notice here it gives you a preview of how the table of contents style will be like. Okay, we have heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3. You can add more levels. Okay, more levels. For example, if I want to just show the chapters and the sections, I don't want to show the subsections, I choose only 2 levels. So only 2 levels will show in the table of contents. It won't show the subsections. The only levels it will show the chapter and the sections. Okay, let's try it. Notice here we don't have British Coast Guard, which is a subsection of the Army section of the Great Britain chapter. Okay, because I only chose 2 levels. So the only levels that are indexed in this table of contents are chapters and sections, no subsections. Okay, let's go back now and let's choose, for example, let's generate another table of contents. Let's do a custom table of contents, and now let's choose a single level. Who can tell me now the only things that will be indexed if I choose a single level?
The chapter title.
Yes, exactly. The only things that are indexed is Great Britain, France, and Spain, which are the chapters of our document. Okay? Now, same with this, we can choose more levels to be indexed. Okay, what comes after subsections are paragraphs. For example, if you want to index paragraphs, you can. You use just a simple table of contents, and you can choose different heading styles. Okay, the maximum allowed is 9 apparently. Okay, the heading styles, each time you use a heading style, the other one after it will appear. You can use the other one just under it. Okay, for example, the default is 3, meaning chapters, sections, and subsections. For example, if we use 4, we can index paragraphs. In this document we don't have paragraphs, but we can use them. For example, let's go like this. We have the subsection called British Marines. Let's give that subsection a paragraph. Now, how can we use a paragraph? How can we write a paragraph? Now, we go to the Home tab. Now, we used heading 3 for British Marines. Notice the moment that we used heading 3, heading 4 appeared. Now we can use heading 4. If we use heading 4, heading 5 appears. If we want, for example, to add uh, uh, something under a paragraph, for example, we can. Let's give it a name. Let's go with uniform, for example, uniform, and let's leave it empty. Let's just for structural reasons. Now, if I go to the table of contents, we go to the references tab, and then we update the table of contents. We need to update the entire table because we've added another paragraph. Now notice here we have Great Britain as a chapter, the army as the section, British Marines as the subsection, and now we have a paragraph under that subsection. Okay, now this is the benefit of a custom table of contents. Okay, we can customize our table of contents as the need arises. Okay, but generally the automatic tables are enough. Okay, we can use just automatic table 1, and we have 3 levels that are indexed, which are chapters, sections, and subsections, and the document will be well structured. Okay, now if we save the document, we can, for example, let's save the document as a PDF. We can save the document as a PDF. Now notice if I click on Great Britain, it takes me to the appropriate page, just like the document that we've seen before. Okay, okay. So do you have any questions, or is anything not clear about the table of contents? It's clear. So now I will upload this to YouTube. Okay, okay, that's good. Moving on, I think that in the next session we will start with I don't know if I will start with Microsoft Excel or Microsoft PowerPoint. Okay, anyway, I will send you the details later via email. Okay, so if there are no further questions, I bid you farewell until we meet next time, inshallah. No problem.